Welcome to the Blogger Genius Podcast, brought to you by MiloTree. Here's your host, Jillian Leslie.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Blogger Genius. Before I get started, I want to invite you to join my Facebook group. It's called the MiloTree Mastermind Group. If you go to Facebook and search for it, you will find it. And I want it to be an extension of the podcast, a place where we can discuss. I do recaps every Monday at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, where I talk about that week's episode. And I want you to come join me, ask questions, share your knowledge. I really want to build this community. So please come. Again, MiloTree Mastermind Group. For today's podcast, I have Neal Schaefer on the show. And Neal is a social media strategy consultant. What that really means is he goes into large businesses and he teaches them social media strategy. And now what he's trying to do is really understand the mindset of the blogger. So we talk about a whole host of social media platforms. He has been in the social media biz for a very long time, and he has some interesting insights that he shares, like you can't really know a platform unless you actually use it. So without further ado, I think you're going to like this. Without further ado, here is my interview with Neal Schaefer. Neal, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you here.
I am equally excited, Jillian. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Okay, so you are a marketer, an author, a speaker, and I have to share how I found you, which is I've started using this app called Bonjoro. And when people sign up for MiloTree now, I send them like a little video saying thank you for joining. And I noticed your name, and then I was researching, just randomly, social media experts. And there was a list that of people you should follow. And you were on the list, and I saw that name, and I'm like, wait a second. I have seen this name before. And I went to your site, and I saw MiloTree on your site or blog. And I went, oh my God, it's the same person. And I was such a fangirl that I was like, I can't believe you're using our app. That's so cool. And I reached out to you, and I said, would you please be on my podcast? And when you said yes, I told my husband, I said, oh my God, I've got this expert on my podcast. I'm so excited. So thank you for coming on the show.
No, thank you. Anybody listening as well, we use a lot of technology on our websites and social media tools and marketing tools. So whenever, after a download, the founder reaches out with a personalized video, and it definitely was personalized. That's very special. So, kudos for doing that. And I think,
thank you.
We're getting back, and I know we'll probably touch upon this, but I know that the listeners, we all want to monetize our presence in social media. And I am getting back to telling my clients and those, entrepreneurs that I coach that it really is coming back to relationships in many different ways. So being able to get that one-on-one, however you do it, to be remembered is 3/4 of the battle, I believe. So I think what you're doing is almost, if everybody listening could do that, if you are following, 1,500, this is something I'm trying to do. If you're following 1,500 people on Instagram, that means that every day, if you were to direct message 5 people and genuinely send them personalized messages and ask how you can help them, you could be in touch with all of the people you follow on Instagram, in a year, right? And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things that develop from that. So it really is all about the relationship. So Jillian, you're doing a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, thank you. Okay, so let's start with how you got to be where you are, how you got to be this expert, this social media expert.
Well, it's a long and funny story.
Okay.
I've been doing this for over a decade, right? My journey started when I have a little unique background. I obviously we were talking, Jillian, born and raised here in Southern California, went to University of Massachusetts, and I decided that I was going to do something completely different and start my career in Japan. So I actually lived in Japan for 15 years.
Wow.
And then I came back here, and after a few years, I was suddenly in transition, and I didn't have a network because I was always working corporate, obviously. So that's where I got really heavily into LinkedIn. And
Okay.
this is really early days for LinkedIn. This is really when Facebook was still just for college students. Instagram obviously hadn't appeared yet.
Right.
Twitter had just launched. And I decided to see LinkedIn not just as, where you connect with people, but as a business tool, really. And I was able to develop not only a network from that, but LinkedIn used to have all these functionalities. Like they had LinkedIn Answers where you could go in and it was like a Q&A forum. LinkedIn Groups used to be a lot more active then. And LinkedIn also supported these different apps. They actually had a WordPress.com app. I actually launched my WordPress blog on LinkedIn.
Wow.
And that was back in July of 2008, believe it or not. I'm sort of
Wow.
aging myself here. But as I began blogging, I just got tons of traffic, and I noticed that there were people all over the world coming to my blog. And that is when I realized really the power of being on the internet and having a voice. Now, at that time, the blog was really about making connections with people. It was an extension of my networking on LinkedIn that I could help people all around the world and get to know them.
Okay.
But it was really fast forward where I did find my job, but it was in the middle of the the Lehman Brothers crash, what have you. So that ended very, very quickly. And my wife said, Neal, you should consider writing a book. And I never thought I would do it, but I had already blogged a quarter of my book, and it was on LinkedIn. So I decided to go full force into it. And when I got my next job offer, I actually had I was actually negotiating my first real consulting gig, and this is in January of 2010. And there were companies that said, we know we need to do social media. We don't know much about it. We don't know what we need to do. Will you help us? So that's where I really started. And I do not have an agency background per se. So I really started helping companies, helping, small businesses, enterprises with really social media marketing strategy, social media marketing training, what have you. And I've been doing that. I really never turn back. And, you begin to speak more. You speak on bigger stages. You get invited to speak more. You blog. Your blog gets bigger. On social media, you get to be bigger and bigger. You write a second book, you get a bigger audience. So I really believe, Jillian, and hopefully you'd agree with me, that it's a tumbleweed effect, right? As long as you consistently keep doing it and you're targeted and you're genuinely developing relationships with people, it gets bigger and bigger and broader over time. The question then is, what product are you going to bring to market? How are you going to monetize that? But as far as building community and building presence and getting out there and building brand awareness, I do believe it really is that consistency. So I know that a lot of you, Jillian, you mentioned your community. They're pretty advanced in what they do. So I'm assuming that they've been doing this for a while.
Right.
And there are a lot of people who just give up. And my advice is really, if you're looking for that broader brand awareness, it's probably right around the corner, right? It's just a consistency. Pivoting as the social networks, obviously, I've seen them, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen them change over the last 10 years, trying to figure out what works, always looking at your data, and continue iterating that, really.
Well, I would say, to add to that, I think you are absolutely right. I would say the first question to ask yourself is, why? What are you trying to accomplish being on social media? I was just with a group of bloggers, and I feel like they get that they need to have a presence and they need to grow. However, I don't think they've linked it to that final the final question, which is, and what are you going to do with this?
Right. And, everything has to be intentional. It has to be objective focused. And I think that a lot of you, I began my career as a solopreneur because my wife is Japanese, does not really speak fluent English, or didn't at the time, had baby number one. That's why we moved back to the United States. Baby number two is in her stomach. And I was doing a lot of travel because I was in sales, and I was traveling back to Asia quite a bit.
Right.
And one day where she would say, Neal, what's more important to you, right?
Right.
Helping your family or your career. And that's where I realized, wow, I had the balance wrong, right? And it was after that I became a solopreneur. And it was really after that I became passionate about wanting to maintain my lifestyle so that I could spend time with my family. I know that your audience is primarily female. I am male. But being there with my kids, being on the PTA board, being the manager of my or the coach of my son's elementary school soccer team, being able to take them to all the events is a very special thing that I've cherished, and doing what I do has allowed me to do that. So that's my I would say that's my first passion, right? My second passion is obviously helping people and really helping empower other people with the experiences that I have. So you have to have those passions. And I think that probably everyone listening to this has those passions, when they launched doing what they're doing. But the social media side, here's the thing, and I just recorded a podcast on this yesterday, Jillian, that I've yet to publish. But if you're not really into it, if you're not passionate about it, if you don't find a use for using social media, I don't think you're going to be successful at it.
I agree with that completely. I totally do.
And Jillian, the episode I recorded yesterday, I'm going to be really honest. I was recording podcasts, but I was not a podcast listener.
Really? Okay.
Okay. So over the last few months, it's been 3 months since I recorded my last podcast episode. I've listened to a ton of podcasts. I subscribe to, I don't know, maybe half a dozen. One of those is Jenny Melrose's podcast, where I think you appeared as a guest, right?
Yes.
And this was after you had reached out to me, so it's a small world. But listening to the podcast, realized that I've been doing it all wrong. And I bet you if you are just, using Tailwind to pin to Pinterest, but you're not an actual Pinterest user,
right.
You don't consume content or Pinterest, or you're just posting on Instagram without looking at your feed and the feed of your followers, you miss out on a lot. And at the end of the day, it becomes a chore. It doesn't become fun. You don't have a passion for it. And that's why you really need, if you want to do really good at social media, you need to become a user.
Yes.
Right. You need to become part of the community and understand, just like, Jillian, I found MiloTree on Pinterest.
Right.
And I realized Pinterest is incredibly educational for me because the way that people create visuals and the content on there is so direct to the point, and it's actually brilliant.
Right.
And I look at my blog, I have a lot of guest bloggers, and they're so not to the point. Right. On so many things.
Right.
It's like, what are the Google keywords that you're trying to target here, et cetera, et cetera. So
right.
I have learned just a great deal becoming a consumer, a member of a bunch of Tailwind tribes where I'm sharing a lot of content. Because every time I share it, it gives me data to see what works and what doesn't work without me having to experiment with my own data, right?
Right.
Et cetera, et cetera. So you have to become a member. And, I think I started social media, obviously on LinkedIn, but I love social media. I consider myself introvert sometimes in public, but very social online. I'm sure there's many of us like that out there.
Right.
And I just have to meet people and help people. That's why I got into sales to begin my career. Oh. So that's really the key thing. And I know that, everybody wants really tactical, do this and you're going to make 7 figures next year. And it really, as you know, it doesn't really work that way.
It doesn't work that way.
Right. But I guarantee if you become a bigger part, you don't have to do all of them. Pick 1 or 2, right?
Right.
And really, it's not rocket science. These social networks, my 14-year-old daughter, I just let her start Instagram because she's a freshman in high school now. It's like, okay, you can use social media now, but I have a bunch of rules. But she's teaching me things that I didn't even know. So it's very intuitive the way they've created these social networks. So just go out there and do it.
But here's so I absolutely agree with everything that you have said. And definitely, for example, I started this podcast because I love podcasts and I listen to podcasts, and I do that more than say be on YouTube. So therefore podcasting made perfect sense for me because I understand the medium, right? Yep. But here is the thing that I think bloggers sometimes miss, especially when it comes to something like Instagram, which is I need to grow my Instagram followers. And bloggers are really good at growing Instagram followers, especially if they use MiloTree, for example. But then the question is, what do I do with them? So for you as a solopreneur, you consult, right? So you're trying to use social media to ultimately find clients that you can then teach social media to.
Correct. I'm no different than your blogger audience, actually.
Okay, but I feel like sometimes my blogger audience feels like just getting followers is the end goal, and they don't take it to, well, how do I monetize social media?
Yeah, so, and it's just this evergreen topic that a lot of people are confused about. So at the end of the day, right, you have to have passion.
Okay.
You have to have product to sell, and you have to have a community that wants that product.
Okay.
So in order to build the community that wants that product, you need to have a certain type of branding. And if you're just posting about what you had for breakfast, you are what you tweet. So if you're just posting those photos on Instagram, you're going to attract foodies.
Okay.
Now, if you're like a food photographer, that might be a perfect audience for you.
Right.
But if you want to attract people that are interested in what you have to sell, you obviously have to be pushing that content. Now, people do this in a blog. And a blog is where you should be 100% on brand. But every social network is slightly different. I think Pinterest, you can be 100% on brand. But on Instagram, if you're just pushing out images of like quote images of things from your blog posts, I do not think you're going to be that successful.
Okay.
Every social network is very different, right?
Okay.
Instagram is different because you're competing with photographers, with models. I mean, you're also competing with the same sort of people on Facebook, but people have become really, really good at taking really, really good photos and really, really good videos.
Okay.
And then there's your, image that you created using a Canva template, and it just is not as engaging as seeing a person. So once you begin doing it, so I just finished writing my next book, which is going to be published in March. It's really on how to build influence in social media and how to leverage influence, called The Age of Influence. And I don't want to get into promoting my own book, but I will say that in my endorsements, or in my foreword, I should say, I did thank a lot of people that had inspired me. Okay. And one of them is Jen Herman. Now, Jen Herman, I don't know if you've heard of her.
No.
Have you, Jillian?
No.
Okay. Jen Herman is, I consider to be one of the biggest experts on Instagram.
Okay.
So there's a few of them out there. I think a lot of people talk about Peg Fitzpatrick.
Yep.
A lot of people talk about Sue Zimmerman.
Yep.
She's in that league. So Jen actually blogged on my blog about Instagram like 7 years ago.
Wow.
And she has just been on target. So, whenever she has something to announce, she doesn't put up a Canva image. She puts up a picture of herself with text that sort of hints at what she's going to be talking about. And then she writes almost a mini blog post on her Instagram photo. Obviously, if you want to get further information, link in bio. So there's just a very, very different way of operating on Instagram than you would on, for instance, Pinterest.
Okay.
Pinterest got found. I used to, create a pin for every blog post I created. And then I realized, what? Some of this stuff is just not relevant to the Pinterest audience.
Okay.
I don't have to pin every single blog post on Pinterest,
right?
If it's not relevant to that audience. So there's just different ways of work. So a lot of it is experimentation. A lot of it is, looking at thought leaders in your industry, looking at those bloggers that you think are successful. But at the end of the day, you have to monetize, you have to limit the time you spend, and you have to spend the time on the social networks that are actually driving business for you. But I will say, out of all the networks, why Instagram is important and why a lot of people like myself, I know Jenny Maros is really into talking about Instagram stories, but it really is the best way outside of LinkedIn, which is really for business. It really is the easiest and best way to engage with people in social media today as we record this podcast. This may change next year, may change next month, but truly, organically, you have the ability to reach the most number of people. And with just the engaging functionality you have in stories, and obviously with the ability to message anybody, you do have the ability to really engage and get to know people in a deeper way that you can in any other social network. And that's where I get back to, if you want to monetize, you need to build community. In order to build community, you need to have engagement. You need to build relationships with people. And that's where it gets down to. So you're not going to generate the traffic on Instagram that you get on Pinterest, right?
Right.
I get more traffic on Pinterest than I get on Facebook or from LinkedIn.
Right.
There's some days where my Instagram, though, will beat Facebook for traffic, will beat LinkedIn for traffic for me. So you need to sort of put it in perspective, but understanding, right now I focus on the networks where I can generate a lot of traffic for my blog.
Okay.
My number one is actually Twitter.
Okay.
My number two is Pinterest.
Okay.
And that's why I create a lot of, Twitter and Pinterest. It's easy to automate, right? In an authentic way. Instagram, you can't really automate. Instagram, where I know I have to spend more time, but I think there's going to be greater ROI over time. So Twitter, Pinterest, I do as much automation as I can to scale. And then with that extra time, I like to try to engage and really build up a community on Instagram where I've already gotten business from Instagram, and I think there's a lot of other people that have as well. And it really comes from those relationships and being there constantly, whether it's publishing or engaging with your community.
Imagine growing your Instagram followers with no work. Highly engaged followers. Now imagine it with Pinterest, Facebook, YouTube. How about new email subscribers? Seriously, no work. This is all possible if you install the MiloTree pop-up on your blog. David, my husband, and I started our blog, Catch My Party, in 2009. We've since grown it into the largest party ideas site on the web with millions of page views per month. We did it with hard work and our secret weapon, our MiloTree pop-up, which David built for us. We've grown our Pinterest followers to over 1.3 million and our Instagram followers to over 164,000. And Right now, 8,000 other bloggers just like you are using MiloTree to grow their businesses. With MiloTree, you can focus on growing one platform or switch between several. But here is the important thing. If you aren't converting your visitors into followers, subscribers, and customers, you're honestly wasting your own traffic. Make this asset, your visitors, work for you. Since we're bloggers, we get bloggers. So we've optimized MiloTree like crazy. It's a snap to install. It won't slow your site down. It's Google friendly on mobile. And it's so darn cute. You can even add animated sparkles to your pop-up if you like. Sign up now and get your first 30 days for free. Please pause this episode and head to MiloTree.com to sign up. I know you will thank me. As a bonus, once you sign up, I'm going to send you weekly actionable business tips to help you grow your business. I've been at this a long time and I have a lot to share. Remember, your scarcest resource is not money, it's time. So let MiloTree free up time for you so you can focus on the other important parts of your business. So what are you waiting for? Hit pause, head to MiloTree, and sign up today. Okay, so let's break down what you do on Instagram daily. Tell us your strategy.
So Instagram requires a few different things. If I was publishing every day on Instagram, I'd be a happy camper. I am not. That's always been my goal. I do publish a few times a week, and I've been on Instagram since like 2012 or 2013 myself, and I really never used it for business. I have a lot of followers in social. They found me on Instagram, and I've really kept it to, keep in touch with people. Now, when I travel or when I speak at events like Social Media Marketing World, obviously I'll be posting more photos. But over the last year or two, I've really wanted to develop my own strategy. So as I said, I don't think Instagram should be 100% business only. That's my own personal philosophy. I think when you have a broader reach and you post things that your community would engage with, it's going to help your overall engagement. So, on Facebook in the old days, you might have posted a blog post, then you might have posted a picture or a quote image, right? Because you want to get more engagement, right? It's the same thing with Instagram. So I've created my own sort of buckets of content over the last few months, where it is 1/3 travel. And I define that as business travel because I do a lot of business travel and a lot of it's international. So there's always a travel, and I go to Japan a few times a year. So there is definitely this Japan/travel component that I have that I know people engage with. The other one is food. Wherever I travel in the world, I love to, sample the cuisine. I eat a lot of Asian food here in Southern California. So there is that food part that people definitely engage with. And I'll tell you, there's bloggers out there that will engage with my food posts because they like to eat food too, Guess what? We all need to eat food. And there's also a part that will engage with the travel. And then the other third is the more business focused. So it could be a blog post, it could be a podcast, it could be an event that I'm speaking at or a webinar. And I try to mix it up that way so it's not 100% business. And guess what? Which posts always perform the worst? It's always the business posts.
Right.
But by mixing it, I did do an Instagram story, a poll several months ago, asking my fans, or my followers, I should say, do you want me to post more social media content on Instagram? And I think it was like 32-2, yes. So that's what gave me the confidence. So, if you've been posting 100% business on Instagram, I'd take a step back. And by posting these other things, people get to know you better, right? It's all about like knowing trust.
Exactly.
Right? So that's why I encourage you. You need lifestyle content buckets on Instagram, and you need to shift the weight of those greater than in any other social network. You don't need to do this in Pinterest, okay?
Right.
You should do some of this on Facebook, but on Instagram, that's where I would post the least amount of business content and get the most, connection with people, whatever it is that you're passionate about. And that way, I think, Jillian, you're actually going to have more fun on Instagram as well because you're posting about things that you're passionate about outside of your business, but you're going to create these different touch points with people, right? So maybe a blogger is following you or potential clients following you and they haven't really, engaged with you, but then they see that one thing like, oh my God, carbonara is my most favorite Italian dish too. Oh, you were in Turkey, I went to Istanbul. It's these little connections that really generate, the sparks.
Now, here's a question. How are you using posts versus stories?
So stories, I try to post stories more frequently, knowing that they disappear in 24 hours.
Okay.
So with posts, so this becomes another best practice is to really batch things, right? I never went with an Instagram business account. I had a personal account. The reason being that I always think with a business account, you're going to get dinged in the algorithm. Now,
Okay.
a lot of people on Instagram say that's not the case. Instagram reached out to me when they developed this creator account. So
Okay.
right now I have a creator account, which I think is better than a business account actually.
Okay.
But the tools, you cannot automate it
Right.
with like a tail because it's not a business account. So I'm trying to get into the process of batching and getting content ready in advance. But here's the thing, Jillian, I was in Europe a few weeks ago, and just a few days ago, I published a photo of when I was in Europe. So you don't have to like publish everything all at once. Once you batch it,
Right.
you can drip it over time.
Right.
But when I don't have stuff over time, or I don't have the inspiration to post that day, that's where I can go to a story. And it's really about in the now. I like to be real time with story. I also tend to do more video on story. And I have noticed, Jillian, I know that everyone's saying, oh, you got to be on stories. I've had potential sponsors reach out to me saying, hey, does your community engage with you more in stories or in the feed? And to be honest with you, my feed has really been at par with stories. But over the past few weeks, I've definitely noticed more impressions or I should say more engagement on stories than on my posts. So it's definitely increasing. The other thing I use a story for, I do have over 10,000 followers, so I can use a swipe up.
Yep.
I did use Jenny Melrose's advice and try the DM. And I don't know if it's definitively better or worse yet, so I'm going to keep trying that. So you don't have to have 10,000 followers to do that. But I do use it for that reason as well. So, and it's also stuff that is definitely more, it might be a little bit more out of brand, more lifestyle-ish. But it also may be more business if it's sort of time limited. Hey, make sure this is happening tomorrow. Make sure you check this out. So it's still, clinging to those buckets of content, but just being more real time. Try to do more video because I think people are more attentive. If I can create something interesting for 15 seconds versus on the feed where they may scroll through, and really use it in that way. I don't, there's no science behind it, but every day I'm on Instagram and every day I'm looking through my feed, trying to engage with other people. I follow some hashtags. I look for some new people to follow. I also use some tools to go through my own followers. Are there people that haven't posted in a year that have just tuned out of Instagram? Are there people that have not engaged with my content? I do a lot of different things.
And then
So
will
there is
you
a
then
management
unfollow?
piece.
Will you what will you do with those people?
So I'm in a different situation. If you're just starting out, there is no reason really to do follow unfollow, right?
Okay.
I have been doing this for 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
So I have done things like followed everybody when I began on Instagram. I started following all of my Facebook friends.
Yep.
Well, guess what? 3/4 of them never posted on Instagram.
Yep.
And
Yep.
if they haven't posted in 5, so I go through and I will look at inactives and I will unfollow them. And I have actually recorded a podcast about this. Instagram is very, very different. You don't have to follow a lot of people. You actually shouldn't. It's really about who you follow. You
Yep.
should keep really, really good touch with. So
Yep.
I am actually paring down. I'm actually reducing my follower count because I don't want inactives following me, because what happens is when Instagram feeds my content, some of it's
Right.
going to go to people that never see it, and it's going to hurt my
Exactly.
engagement.
Exactly.
So I am very scientific about that. And I say, hey, just because I unfollow doesn't mean we're not friends. I just use Instagram very, very differently. If you want to unfollow me, go for it. And I've announced that publicly, right? I have no problem with that, because really you want to find your fans and you want to develop deeper and deeper relationships with them. And from that, business will come, but also it sends Instagram some pretty powerful signals that you have really, really engaging content, you have an engaging community, and it's going to help your future content do all the more better. So, there's different phases that everybody is in.
Right.
If you're in a phase, I would say, I am trying to get to following under 1,500 people. So there are tools, because I'm writing a book on influencer marketing, there are tools out there that say, if you follow more than 1,500 people, you are not an influencer. Now,
Got it. Yep.
they're saying, why do you need to follow more than 1,500 people? So it got me thinking, because I've had people, some pretty influential people in social media that we follow each other on Twitter, what have you, that have unfollowed me on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go back at their profile and they were following 5,000. Now they're only following 500.
Got
And
it.
maybe some of you
Yeah.
are nodding as well. You've seen that happen as well. And I used to have sort of a bitter grudge. I don't have that anymore. I get it. And in fact, when I talk to some of these influencer tool companies and Instagram marketing tool companies, they say, hey, it's all about who are your supporters, right? If they're not
Totally.
your supporters now, they've been following you for a few years, your content's just not being seen in their feed. Why waste a follow? Even my daughter, right? I will follow, like my daughter's best friend followed me on Instagram. I followed her back, and she go, "Daddy, don't waste a follow on my friend."
Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny. Okay, could we talk though about your DM strategy on Instagram?
So this is something I've just begun,
Okay.
right? And DMs are extremely powerful as we know. So yes, tag brands in stories, tag brands in posts. Whenever you talk about someone in a post, tag them. Don't tag people you don't talk about in a post just to generate engagement, because that's really
Spammy.
cringy.
Yep.
Yeah, spammy. But I have just started this concept. So if you go into who you follow on Instagram, this is all in the Instagram app, by the way, you can actually sort by the date you follow them. So you can go back to the people you followed, when you just started, and start with 5 a day. And if you press messages, you're going to see your history. Go to their feed, spend a minute or two a person just to reach out and say, "Hey, it's been a while. How you been?" Or, "Hey, there was someone that hadn't posted in 3 months, and I didn't want to unfollow her, so I don't unfollow everybody. I don't, family and stuff." And she was a dear person, a social media expert. She hadn't posted in 3 months. She was always engaging. And so I reached out to her. I'm like, "Hey, I see you haven't posted in a while. You okay?" And she goes, "Oh, I just started an e-commerce company," and it was great, right? To reconnect, even though she hadn't posted. So doing DMs allows you to do that. So what I do constantly is, if you go in order, you DM 5 people, you take a screenshot on your phone of how far you went, who was the last person you DM, and then tomorrow you start the same thing, and after you're done, you take another screenshot of who you need to DM. This is something, like I said, I've not started to do it. I plan on doing, but look, you don't need to spend an hour a day on social media, right? It's a targeted. Yes, you might have to spend time getting your tailwind, loops or recues, or I'm forgetting the word, or tribes, whatever it is.
Right.
You may have to spend time getting this stuff set up, right?
Right.
You may go in once a week or when you have a new blog post. But for the daily social media, I don't want you spending too much time, but the time I want you to spend should be more on the actual engagement. And I do believe the 2 key places to do that right now are Instagram and LinkedIn, if you're on LinkedIn, and that's where your target audience is.
Okay, now what about Facebook? What is your feeling about it?
I have spent less and less time on Facebook. Facebook is still obviously a very, very active place, but for businesses, it's become pay to play. So Facebook ads is, it allows you to scale, spend a little bit of money, build up community there. I think you should be present there, but I just think it's so much harder. My Facebook, I'd say, is sort of on what's the word I'm looking for here, but it's sort of on the bare minimum that I could be doing. Yes, I post once a day. I try to do live streams. Jillian, when I do my podcast, I know that others have done this. Use Facebook live stream to record my podcast. So I do what I can there. I also repost my Instagram to my Facebook page. So try to generate engagement there.
Okay.
But it's a losing battle. So personal profile, sure, you still get a lot of engagement. But I think that compared to Facebook, Instagram, it's supply and demand. There's just too many people publishing too much content on Facebook. You just don't have that situation on Instagram, which is why you get a lot more engagement. I can break through and reach more people. So, make new friends but keep the old. I wouldn't sort of disappear on Facebook. I would do the minimum. That's the word I'm looking for, life support. That's pretty much what my Facebook is on. If you're using Facebook ads, they're extremely powerful. If you have a little bit of money, definitely do that. I'd say the value for me in Facebook is more of to do live streaming to record my podcasts and for Facebook ads.
Interesting. Okay.
That's my, everybody listening, all your experiences are going to be different. That's my personal experience.
So where do you think, and then do you think there is a role for bloggers, let's say, on LinkedIn?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, who is your target audience? And in fact, I am actually recording a webinar today. So let me just go into some stats that I have handy here in a slide. Okay. 1 second here. Let me scroll down. This is how I introduce LinkedIn to people.
Okay.
There it is. Where'd it go? Okay. Not the stat I was looking for. I think like 2/3 of American professionals are on LinkedIn.
Right.
So, here it is. 50% of Americans with a college degree use LinkedIn. So do you think your target audience has a college degree?
Yes.
Right? 45% of LinkedIn users earn $75,000 per year. Are you targeting people? Do you want to target people that earn more than $75,000 per year?
Yes.
Okay. Here's the thing. Everybody targets Pinterest because they have buying power. The stat here that I have says that LinkedIn's audience has two times the buying power of the average web audience.
Okay.
That's really powerful. Now,
Okay.
what's interesting, my background's B2B sales and biz dev and marketing. So, if you're trying to sell to organizations, 4 out of 5 LinkedIn members drive business decisions. So I think
Right.
that up until now, a lot of bloggers have probably strayed away from LinkedIn because, well, I'm not trying to sell to businesses and organizations. But
Exactly.
it's people. It's the same people. And I do the opposite. I wasn't doing much on Pinterest, and I go to, B2B marketers and I go, hey, the same people on LinkedIn, some of them are on Pinterest.
Right.
The same VPs of marketing, directors of marketing, they might be on Pinterest for a different reason, but once in a while they're consuming content about marketing. So it's the opposite thing, right? And it's funny because LinkedIn over the past 2 or 3 years has really changed. We know the demographics of our great country are changing, and that millennials are now a majority of the workforce.
Right.
Meaning that millennials are becoming a majority on every social network, including LinkedIn. So LinkedIn has added video. They've recently added live stream, not open to everybody, but there's a younger audience there that's creating more Facebook-like content. In fact,
Right.
when I do social selling trainings, like I work with one of the largest insurance companies in the country, and I train, their agents on how to best use social.
Right.
I will say, if you're just posting about business on LinkedIn, that's boring. Every once in a while, you should have lifestyle content on LinkedIn. And I show a picture of an agent, and I think she's in South Carolina, and she posted this on a hot July day, my 5 favorite summer lemonade recipes.
Right.
Because it's the same people, right? And more people use LinkedIn. They're publishing lifestyle content. So I know that every blogger is different in terms of the content they publish, but if you haven't been on LinkedIn, I highly recommend you check it out. I highly recommend you try to do some searches for the content. And it really is organic content, even for business pages on LinkedIn. I don't recommend you do a company page on LinkedIn. I recommend you stick with your personal profile. But I have clients. So I have one client, and maybe it's because they don't have that many followers yet on LinkedIn, but they get more impressions than the number of followers they have per
Right.
post on it.
Wow. So I had done another podcast, which I'll link to in this episode, about how LinkedIn is the new Facebook because the algorithm is so much more generous.
Yeah, and you know what? So I listened to a podcast yesterday. You see, I'm a big consumer now.
Yes.
And so someone said a similar thing, right? And I thought about it. I'm like, well, this is the reason why. So Jillian, you're the first one I'm telling this to in public. But the reason why is Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, they can only rely on their ads. LinkedIn has a recruiter solution that they sell.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
They have a sales solution.
Yes.
Right? They have other streams of income. So they can
Yes.
be a little bit more generous and say, you know what, small businesses of America, we're going to give you some more love in the algorithm because we don't necessarily have to make 100% of our revenue
Right.
on ads.
Right.
Huge difference.
Huge difference. I think that's really interesting. And the thing that I have learned is that LinkedIn, that you should be I think of my LinkedIn as like very formal and not aligned with who I am. But I think that you are right, which is people are doing status updates every day where they are posting that more well-rounded content.
Yes. Now, I think that you should also have understanding that it is a professional audience, it is a business-related audience. Of also, whatever industry, whatever, you're pitching, there's probably a business side to it. Even, bloggers, there's a B2B side. Maybe you use Shopify for your store. Maybe you use Etsy, whatever it is. There is a side of it that you could curate business-related content and publish that, right?
Right.
Just something to think about. So we're on Instagram, you have to go the opposite. You have to go lifestyle. On LinkedIn, if you just want to go lifestyle, I recommend you do the opposite and find business-related or professional development-related content to mix in with that.
I like that. So it's not just, so they're almost inverses of each other.
Yes. And in fact, I've noticed recently that when I post a photo, when I repost something I post on Instagram, on LinkedIn, it gets way more engagement than when I post a link on LinkedIn with some of my blog content. So, I mean, that alone is not going to pay the bills.
Right.
It's not going to bring people back to my website. So you need the combination. But every time you publish that lifestyle post, you get that engagement. It obviously helps raise the ocean for all of your other content going forward. So yeah, it's the opposite.
I get it. Now, okay, how do you stay up on all the changes that happen in social media? You've been at this a long time. You've seen tons of changes. What do you do to stay up to date, given that that's your business?
I mean, number one, I look at the data. I
Okay.
don't freak out whenever there's an algorithm change because the data will show it, right?
Okay.
So that's the first thing. Are you tracking the data? Are you tracking your Google Analytics? Are you going into Facebook Insights, what have you, and seeing how you're doing on a regular basis? I believe that's the most important thing. Number two, are you actually showing up on the platforms? Are you noticing that when you pin from your blog using the Pinterest button, at least the Chrome extension, it's not giving you the ability to enter a description? So, okay, I need to now manually go to Pinterest and add the pin there in order for me to get the description I want with the keywords and hashtags I want into onto my board. So it's little things like that. If you use the platforms regularly, you see things. Instagram, when they have new functionality, they always publish a story on it, or they'll sometimes put an ad in the feed to show it to you. So, and then content finds you. If you're following these people like myself or other sort of, social media authors or, marketing speakers, what have you, the content will find you when something new comes out. The other thing that I do, Jillian, because I am in the business of social media and social media marketing, is I curate a lot of content and I publish a lot of content. Now, Twitter is where I publish the most curated content. So just by every day going into my RSS feeds to find content to curate and publish, I'm keeping up to date on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And maybe for bloggers that don't know what to publish on LinkedIn, maybe by doing the same thing and just keeping up to date on a daily basis. I mean, I use a tool to do that. And there's various social media dashboards and social media tools you can use. But find a tool that works for you and just make it a routine of every day spending a minute of scanning the headlines, finding something interesting, reading it, and then sharing it. And
Okay, what tool do you use?
So my main social media dashboard is Agorapulse.
Okay.
And I highly recommend Agorapulse for everybody listening.
Okay. They do some interesting tests. I like their blog.
The social media lab, yes. And I don't know when this is going to be published, but they are doing a social media success summit, I think is what they called it.
Okay.
That I'm actually going to be re-recording this webinar for it, and it's actually going to go public on September 25th. But it's going to be open for a few weeks. So Jillian, I'll give you a link.
Totally.
And if you go to Agorapulse's Twitter feed, I'm sure you'll find a link as well. Jen Herman, there's going to be like 10 of us. I think Jay Bear. There's going to be some great speakers talking about, I think there's 12 of us, and it's going to be completely free to join. It's going to be like 10 hours of content. So
wow. Okay.
You'll definitely want to check that out.
Okay.
Agorapulse is one. For purely curated content, I use a tool, and a lot of people haven't heard of it. It's a tool called Social Bee. SocialBee.
Okay.
And it is I do not recommend it as a dashboard. I totally recommend Agorapulse, but for certain functionality, it's really interesting. For instance, being able, like I said, to do that daily routine of pulling in RSS feeds and being able to put them in different content categories and then approve them. If I want to make them evergreen, I can. If I just want to post them once, I can. But what's really cool about Social Bee is they also have bees, working bees. Working bees are VAs that they hire.
Okay.
So if you want to pay someone, I think it's for Twitter curated content, it's like $40 a month. If you want to pay someone $40 a month to actually add 20 curated posts to your queue every month, or was it 40 a month? I forgot what the number was. You can do that. And you don't have to do anything then. Just tell them the keywords, give them some guidance, and they'll do the work for you. Wow. And they have this for LinkedIn. They have it for a few networks as well. So it's a tool that actually offers optional professional services at a very, very reasonable rate for small business owners like my fellow bloggers out there. So I highly recommend you check that out.
I love that. Okay. Neal, what about your business are you most excited right now?
I have spent the last 10 years helping corporations and helping employees. What I'm most passionate now is sort of pivoting to finally having a product or products that I can help bloggers, entrepreneurs, small business owners, because my pricing point was always too high for individual people. So I had a mommy blogger reach out to me a few days ago. I was ecstatic. She's like, Neal, can you help me better, monetize my affiliates? Can you help me better, curate content or help me create more lead magnets? And though that is what got me really excited, right? So it's like, I'm going to be coming out with mastermind coaching, what have you. I'm not there yet. Over the next few months, I'll reach out back to you. So developing those products to me, I'm really excited about, because I think I really love to help people. And when those products, I think I'll be able to help people at a deeper level than when I do a 1-hour speech. or
Right.
even, with
Right.
coaching that's more with companies that's more short term. So I'm really excited about that. The other thing is I am, like I said, publishing a book on it's going to be called The Age of Influence. It's going to be published in HarperCollins, so it should get some pretty good distribution. And it's been a very, very long-term project that's finally publishing on March 2020. So
Nice.
obviously
Nice.
today I actually have the final proofreading of the galley, so I have to go to a coffee shop and go through 270 pages to make sure there's no typos. But yeah, I'm really excited about that. And really, I want to re-educate the market on all of this stuff because I think there's a lot of bad advice out there, right? And I think you'd agree, Jillian.
I would.
There's no cookie cutter approach. There's no
Right.
formula. And, Jillian, I rebranded myself from a brand name, which was Maximize Your Social, which is also the name of my podcast,
Okay.
to Neal Schaefer.
Okay.
And I think that the more that you can showcase you, that is going to be the best, most memorable brand. Because when people are going through feeds and they see logos and they see ads and they see purely self-promotional content, and then they see your real face, your real authentic content, you're just going to build a much more deeper relationship. Instagram and all the social networks are going to love you for that. So I would embrace who you are more than ever today. And really, if you haven't shared more of your life, I would definitely do that. Even the things that you think are really boring, let me tell you, they're really exciting. That sunset that you see every day that you think is really boring or really mundane is really exciting to other people around the world that may not be able to see that sunset for whatever reason. So that's really, my advice today for everybody listening.
I love that. I love that. It is to show up even with no makeup on, even with all your warts showing. Show them.
It's okay.
It's okay. It actually is endearing.
Yes, because you know what? We're come on, we're real people. We're not always, and I mean, look at it. If you are jealous because you see other bloggers that are on travel tours and they're in a bikini and they're in Hawaii and someone's taking a picture from behind them, right?
Right.
I talked to someone, one of my clients, and one of her good friends has made millions of dollars on YouTube, and she is, I don't know, maybe 22 or 23.
Right.
So she was in the right place at the right time. But guess what? Her boyfriend is a really, really good photographer, right?
Right.
So behind every one of those people that you see with those fantastic photos, there is someone else that's taking their photo, right?
Right.
They're not taking them on timer. So they have a business partner. They have someone who they've hired or someone they're a friend or someone they're, they're in a dear relationship with. You have to remember that and have to, not everybody can do that. Not everybody lives. If you want to do that, just hire, when I was in Tokyo last time, I went on a Craigslist and hired someone to do a photo shoot with me, right? So go on. There was someone locally in Anaheim who has a pool at her house, says, hey, I'll do a photo shoot with you around my pool, like $40 for an hour.
Right.
You'll get 100 shots, right? So if that's what you want to do, there's a way to do that.
Right.
But I do think the real, and if you don't, your Instagram feed, the photos in your feed, that's your personal branding or the branding of your business.
Right.
That's like your LinkedIn profile, right?
Right.
You don't want to post anything and everything there. But stories, you actually should post anything and everything. That's going to be the glue that's going to keep people engaged with you. So I'm not saying that when, that everything on your feed, you should be selective as to what you put on your feed is what I'm saying.
Yep.
But in stories, I think people do want to see the raw you, the person behind the person.
Yep.
And that's where you want to post that content. So over time, you begin to see the feed as a very, very different beast than the stories.
Yep.
And really, stories, you want to be intentional, but in the feed, you want to be really intentional because for everybody that follows you, there might be 10 or 20 other people that are coming to your profile and checking out your feed and not following you for whatever reason.
Right. Right. I
And
love
those are
that.
the
I love that. Okay, Neal, how can people reach out to you and learn more?
Well, as I said, I rebranded myself, so I am Neal Schaefer, pretty much everywhere. I'm even on Snapchat, but I don't really use it, so don't friend me there.
Okay, so wait, and it's NealSchaffer.com.
That's correct. That's correct. My podcast is the only thing. If you search Neal Schaefer, you'll find it, but it's Maximize Your Social. So if you're a podcast person, I have about 130 episodes under my belt. So I hope you'll check that out. And yeah.
Well, Neal, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Jillian.
I hope you guys liked that episode. For me, the big takeaway is putting my life, your life out there, especially on Instagram, in our stories. It's something that I'm still working on, but I completely see the value. So I have 2 asks. I know I'm only supposed to have 1 call to action, but I think you guys are really smart. So I'm going to ask you for two. One, please go to Facebook and join my Facebook group, the MiloTree Mastermind group. I would love, love, love to see you there. And two, if you are liking the podcast, share it with a friend. The more people who listen, the better the guests I can get. So anyway, that is all I've got for you. And I will be here again next week.